All right, good morning, second grade students. Today for language arts, we are going to be looking at, is the sentence a statement, question, command, or exclamation? So first off, we need to know that there are 4 types of sentences. So first up, we have what is called a statement sentence. Next, we have a sentence that asks a question. Next, we have a sentence that is a command, so it's telling us something that we need to do. And then lastly, we have exclamations or exclamatory sentences. And we're going to get into all 4 of these sentences real quick. All right, so first up, we're going to look at what is a statement sentence. So a statement is a sentence that tells us something. So it's stating something. So with a statement sentence, we use what is called a full stop or a period. You might see those words interchanged. So full stop is the same thing as a period, as you can see in the picture over here. We just have the period at the end of a statement sentence. So all we're doing is we're making a statement, so we use a period. All right, so here's an example of a statement sentence. Bad water in Death Valley is the lowest point in the United States. So since it's just stating a fact, we see at the end that we have a period to end that sentence. All right, next up we have a question sentence. So a question is a sentence that asks us something. And in a question sentence, we use what is called a question mark at the end of a question sentence. And so we see over here on the right, we have a picture of what a question mark looks like. So again, we use that when we want to ask a question. All right, so here's an example of a question. What is the best time of year to visit Death Valley? And again, we see at the end, since we're asking when is the best time of year to visit Death Valley, we have our question mark there at the end. All right, next up we have the command sentence. So a command is a sentence that gives us an order or a direction. And so for command sentences, we again use a full stop or a period at the end of a command sentence. So let's look at 2 examples here of sentences that have commands in them. So the first one, this is more of an order. So it says, plan your trip to Death Valley carefully. So somebody is ordering us to do this. So we need to plan our trip carefully. Now the next sentence says, you must drive north in order to get to Death Valley. So this one is more of a command sentence, because if we don't drive north, we won't get to Death Valley. All right, and our last sentence here is exclamation or exclamatory. So an exclamation is a sentence that shows strong feeling. And we use an exclamation mark at the end of an exclamatory sentence. So we see here we have a picture of what an exclamation mark looks like. So let's take a look here at an example of an exclamation. So here we have our first sentence, we have the exclamation mark at the end. So we have Death Valley is so hot. And then another way that we can also see an exclamation mark is at the end of an exclamatory word like wow. So a lot of times when we say the word wow, we want to emphasize it. It's very important. So here we have an example of 2 exclamation marks in a sentence where we say, wow, I wish I wore shorts to Death Valley. So especially with exclamations, we can sometimes see those pop up more than once within a sentence with one subject in it. All right, so let's look at a example sentence here. So we need to choose the correct punctuation mark for this sentence. So our sentence is, Death Valley is very dry. So we have the period, we have a question mark, an exclamation mark, and then we also have a comma. So when we're talking about Death Valley is very dry, we know we're not going to use the comma because a comma will never go at the end of a sentence. We only see commas in the middle of sentences. We know it's not going to be the question mark because we're not asking a question. So between the period and the exclamation mark, since it sounds like when we say Death Valley is very dry, we are just making a statement. So it's something that we know that Death Valley is very dry. So for this one, we would say we would want to use the period for the end of this statement sentence. All right, let's look at one more here. So we have, should I take extra water to Death Valley? So again, we have the comma, and we know we're not going to put a comma at the end of a sentence. We can never end a sentence with a comma. So when we read this sentence, should I take extra water to Death Valley? Even just the way that we say it, we can start to kind of see that this is going to be a question kind of sentence. So we know that this is not an exclamatory sentence. It's not a command or an order. Although somebody could tell you, like, you need to take extra water to Death Valley. But since we start the sentence out with should I, it starts to show us that this is going to be a question sentence. So for this sentence, we would want to use the question mark. All right, and that is our lesson for today.